What Drives You is brought to you by Ziglar, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziglar.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance.
Yeah.
We're on a journey together to unearth what really drives you, what matters most, so you can drive further, faster, and enjoy the ride. This is What Drives You, and I'm your host, Kevin Miller. The fact that you're listening to this podcast tells me you're driven to influence others, and influence is ultimately leadership. So whether you want to positively influence your kids or your friends or your coworkers, or you want to lead a company or an organization, you got to have some leadership skills. The term of leadership, however, covers a lot of ground, has a lot of baggage that may not be relevant for you, which is why I'm doing this series on authentic leadership. And I brought in Kristen Hadeed. Kristen has a great story of really unintentional leadership that now has her on stage around the world, teaching other leaders what she calls human leadership, which I'd say is leading while being a good and serving human. Kristen was in college and started cleaning people's homes to generate some income. She got more requests and ended up hiring people to help. And from it, ultimately created a company that cleaned student apartments and dorms, and it was staffed only by students. She made so many mistakes, but it helped her learn how to really lead people by connecting to and caring about them. Kristen's book is titled Permission to Screw Up: How I Learned to Lead by Doing Almost Everything Wrong. It's a wonderful book. Simon Sinek wrote the foreword, and she works closely with him. Well, in this show, Kristen and I discuss what authentic leadership is, human leadership, as she says, and what it can be for you. And we get into talking about not only the value of trying and failing, but really the necessity if you're going to do anything worthwhile. Kristen is just a bright light, and we resonated so much, we intend to do more shows and more work together. And I've got a gift for you. Kristen does. She has a renowned program called the Human Leadership Program. If you go there, a ticket costs $299. She does them 4 times per year. But if you use the special link in the show notes, you can get in free, literally free. But I hope you enjoy and benefit from this conversation as much as I did. Kristen, it's just a blast to have you back. It was fun talking the first time, and I find myself with just a whole list of things to discuss that I want your insight in, which I know that's why you get called on by a lot of people. You've got great insight. Thanks for being here and taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was looking at doing my pre, talk stalking and looking at all your stuff. And I saw on Instagram that you have as your kind of your tagline there, building trust, belonging, and building trust, belonging, and wildly engaged cultures through human leadership. And I looked at that, and of course, coming from my topic, thought, okay, right there, that's a great lead into what is driving you in this venture. Tell me.
Well, my story starts with kind of an unlikely place that I found myself in, right? I was a student, and this was back in 2007, needed a way to make some money in school. And so I started cleaning houses, and I never thought that that would be my career or my future, or that I would build a company around that. And I know we'll kind of get to that, but it leads to what drives me, because here I found myself in this industry where, cleaning toilets is so hard and it's not glamorous work. And I was challenged with, how do I create a place where people really love to be? And I found that by creating an environment that allows everyone to be human and that focuses on making people feel like they matter, and where we have trust and connection and we're engaged because of that. That was really what drove me to, continue in an industry that many would have maybe not wanted to be a part of.
Okay. Well, and what we're going to talk about is relevant for everyone. I am not a millennial. A lot of my listeners aren't. Some of them, like me, have kids who are millennials. And I do want to give some focus to that, because I think, we talk about the millennials, but as you talk about, I think I read it in the book or somewhere, the same issues are the same issues to some degree. There's things that change those, and I want to hit on a couple of those. But in that, looking at your business, I want to start off there. So you started off cleaning business. So we have so much right now about, I know you work a lot with Simon Sinek, and talk about millennials and working at your passions and looking for something you're interested in. You started cleaning houses. I doubt that you ever looked at that and go, you know what? That's my passion.
Yeah,
That's
for sure. I didn't think that.
Well, speak to that then, because we have that. So now you would say, okay, kind of reconcile that. That
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily your passion, but through that, I would say you have found and you say it in your words, whether you call it passion, purpose, whatever. Give me that segue.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we start with, I came to the University of Florida for school. I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. And I felt this pressure at a young age to choose the thing that I would be doing when I hadn't even really experienced, life. And which I think is another topic we could talk for 75 minutes about. Just like, why do we put pressure on, young people to try to figure it all out right then and there when you haven't really experienced the world? But I changed my major 9 times. I was all over the place. And I ended up choosing finance, not because it was something that I was excited about and loved. I mean, it was interesting to me, but really my friends were studying finance and they had a plan to move to New York to work on Wall Street. And since I didn't really know what was driving me, I kind of just followed what they were doing. Yeah. And I thought I would kind of follow their path. And then I started cleaning houses. And that's when my journey took a turn, right? I realized that there was potential in this side business I was starting. The turning point happened when, right before I graduated, I got a contract to clean 800 apartments. And that's when it was like, oh, this is a business. I had to hire a team. And just to paint a picture there, I was 21. I didn't know anything about leadership. I definitely didn't know anything about leading a company. And now all of a sudden I'm leading a 60-person team. And I learned consistently by failing and screwing up and, by learning what not to do. Yeah. And what I recognized is that I was so excited by the challenge of leadership, the challenge of like, how do you learn how to be a leader? How do you learn how to create an environment that people really want to be a part of, that inspires people? And that was what was driving me. It didn't necessarily matter what industry it was in. And I learned that I love people. Like I love teaching people, developing people, building a culture. And I think that it was the challenging conditions of the cleaning business that made all of that more exciting, because if I didn't figure that piece out, it wasn't going to work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many different topics I could jump. I'm just going to go organically. One, yeah. I'm actually looking at your bookcase behind you and it looks like your books are color coordinated. Is that fair?
They are.
I've never seen that, but that's really interesting.
Okay. And it's because I remember books by their cover. So when I color code them, I can easily find the book that I'm looking for.
Wow. That's personality style right there. Mine are alphabetical order by the author. So I can go back there and go, okay, where's Hadeed? It's right there. Okay, that's so interesting. Okay. So I'm going to, you talk so much to leadership, to entrepreneurship and millennials is mixed in there. So I'm going to hit on just the things that interest me here. And one of those is you going into a business, you say, okay, is cleaning homes, cleaning dorms or whatever it is, apartments, is cleaning the big passion and purpose? No, not necessarily, but you found it with the people. And it brings me to, as people are looking at, again, I've got kids who are, in their late teens and 20s and whatnot. And we're looking at this and I don't always know do you go after something? My work is a lot of my passion. I get to write and speak on that. Okay. So let's say that's one sector. Okay. That you may work at specifically what you feel like is your purpose, passion, calling, whatever. Or you may work in the product or service in and of itself may not be, but through that, you get to work with people or in your sense and find it there. And then we also know people, and I'm sure you do too, who they work at some job. Hopefully it doesn't stink. I'm going to leave that out. If it stinks, I don't think that's doing anybody any good. But if it's something you think, it's okay, it's got good hours, good pay, good benefits or whatnot. And through that, it gives me time and or money to then support the thing that I'm really into. So I look at that as 3 segments. Actually, I just want your input on that because everybody's out there wondering, how do I do this? And I'm feeling like there's different options than just this one track.
Yeah. So it makes me think of a few things. Okay. First, I think the only way that I could learn what I was passionate about and excited about was by actually learning what I wasn't. And there's a great author I love. Her name is Meg Jay. She wrote The Defining Decade, and she talks about this concept called identity capital. And she says, what we really need to be doing in the early part of our careers, and I would even say throughout our careers, is we need to be building identity capital, which means we need to be trying all kinds of things and learning what we don't like. And the more that we experience and we learn what we don't like, the more we understand what we are excited by and what we do like. And that becomes the currency that allows us to get the things later in our life that we really want. So for me, I looked at my journey with my company as a big learning. And I wore every single hat in the business, and I quickly learned the things that I was not excited about. I'll give you a hint, like anything in Microsoft Excel. I love you if you love Excel, but I quickly learned like I can't do data and like be in the details like that. It's just, It's not my strength. It's not exciting to me. So I learned by wearing a lot of the wrong hats for me, that the people, the culture, that was exciting to me. The other thing is when we talk about passion, I have a different kind of framework for it. I call it the sweet spot. Right. And the sweet spot is where your motivation and your strengths meet. So where are you naturally strong and what are you really excited by? And I think the really cool thing about a sweet spot is that it can come with you anywhere you go. So yes, I can find my sweet spot in, my work. I can take my sweet spot into other areas. And it's kind of what you're talking about. Knowing what actually drives you allows you to look at something, and maybe on the surface, it might seem like it's something that's not meant for you. But if you start to look at it through the lens of how do I bring my unique strengths and motivations to this, you could kind of do what I did, where you one day wake up and realize you're fulfilled, even though you're in a cleaning business, know?
So you're speaking to that, the aspect of you could find that sweet spot in something where, again, the product or service in and of itself may not be the big kahuna for you, which is what you did. Fair?
Right. Fair. Yeah. I am not passionate about vacuuming and dusting. Absolutely
Okay.
No.
Okay. So even I want to play with that. Even in my work where I'd say, I'm doing this right now. This is what I enjoy doing. This is kind of the end all. And yet it's a business. And so there are a lot of things like Excel spreadsheets that I just not only do not like it, nobody needs me in there or we are going to go bankrupt.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough in that. Well, it brings up, this aspect of, when you talk about leadership, let me go back to your tagline of your book, Permission to Screw Up, which is sitting beside me behind me over there. How I learned to lead by doing almost everything wrong, but just on lead. I actually, there's so much out there on leadership. I have not done anything for a while, but I'm going to here with you because I like your take on it. Looking at leadership, first off, speak to this as you talk about leadership and we look at, again, the populace, not people who are already leading, but whether they're millennials or whatever, but just the population out there trying to figure out what to do. I realize there are some people who they hear the term leadership and it's a motivator. That sounds good. I want to learn about that. I think there's a lot that are not. They're kind of even turned off by that, by the baggage they have. And I see you nodding your head. Speak to that a little bit because I define leadership in some different ways, but I want you to.
Yeah, I think that being a leader means that you are taking ownership. It means, you can think about it like being the leader in your own life, like taking ownership of your path and being an advocate for yourself and what you want in your life, and not just being a witness to your life, like actually playing an active role in your future, destiny. That's what I think about, on an individual level, like how can we all be leaders in our own lives? And then I think there's this other piece of it where it's how do you make a difference beyond you? How do you positively impact, the person to the left of you, right of you, across from you? And I think maybe what you're getting at, that some people get turned off by that word, is I think in our world, we've kind of made it like to be a leader, you have to be leading a team, or you have to be moving up, or you have to have all this responsibility. And I think that doesn't resonate with everyone. Yes, there are people who are motivated by that. And maybe we could talk about this as we go on. But I had a point in my career where I realized I didn't want to grow my company. I didn't want more responsibility. I didn't want a bigger operation. And I made the choice to, move to something smaller. But I felt a lot of shame around that because that's not what we've been taught leadership is. It's always bigger, more. And so I think we just have to redefine, that leadership isn't a rank, role, title, level of responsibility. It's your willingness and action to make a difference, whatever that looks like for you.
Okay, I want to come back to something you said, but I want to hit on that leading. Yeah, one of the things that I'll own it for myself, a bias is when I hear leading, I often think of kind of directing people.
Yeah.
I don't like to direct people at all, period. I don't like to manage them. I used to say I'm not good at it, but then I finally realized, no, I just don't like it. I don't like directing. And it's personal because I don't like to be directed, which is one of the reasons I, left ball sports and went into professional cycling where you kind of can do your own thing. It's why I went to entrepreneurship. But even there, if you're going to do anything decent, you need a team that you need to kind of direct, and there we go. There's the problem. And so I've learned that I have to have somebody with me partnering who is better at the directing because it does need to be done. And we'll talk about some pieces of that as we get into, well, no, let's talk about it now. Because we're talking about directing. Gosh, actually, I don't know where to go because I'm thinking a lot of the leadership that you talk about starts, as you said, with self.
Yeah.
Can you lead yourself?
Yeah.
That actually doesn't work in my scenario because I can direct myself, but I don't like to direct others. And you talk about, yeah, play with that with me.
Okay, so I'm thinking about there's this concept from Kim Scott that I love. She wrote Radical Candor, and she talks about rock stars and superstars. And she says, we need both types of people in the world. Like both are special. Not one type is better than the other. But a rock star is more of a specialist, someone that likes to learn something, master it, go deeper in that thing. And to a rock star, they're really motivated and excited about growth, being like more like going deeper in that area that they really love. Whereas a superstar is more excited by variety, working on different types of projects and really excited about an upward growth trajectory. So, it could be that the superstar is the one thinking, I want to be the leader of this team. Whereas the rock star is like, no, I love this thing and I want to rock this thing day in and day out and I love it. And I kind of think about, like when you think about what drives you, when you think about your own growth as a person, what's more exciting to you? Are you excited by an upward growth trajectory in terms of more responsibility, leading a team, doing something like that? Are you excited about being a specialist and going deeper in that thing and realizing that throughout our lives, we can kind of evolve and go between the two? And I had a friend told me once, your life is like a rock climbing wall. You can climb up, down, side, but it's all growth, as long as it's going in a way that means something to you. And I think we just have to get away from this. The only way that you grow is by leading a team and like moving up.
Okay, so which one are you? Rock star, superstar?
So I think I'm more of a rock star these days. Like I think when I started my business, I was really excited about the idea of upward growth, more and more and more. And then I hit this point where I was like, what less? And I figured out my areas that I love and I want to rock those areas. I want a small team. I don't, my definition of growth changed. Yeah. And it took me a while to really go in that direction because I felt like something was wrong with me because we don't ever hear about the leaders who decide I want less, I want smaller, I want, So for everyone listening, I think it's like have the courage to go after what's authentic to you.
Yes, it's interesting because I am with you. I have taken a long time. I thought by proxy, being an entrepreneur, you build, you grow, you rock it, you be a superstar, you have more people, you have more stuff. And as I've gone on, I hadn't put it in those terms, but it was probably 3 years ago that it finally came to me. And I thought, you know what, guys, I'm just an artist.
Yeah.
I don't like that because I feel like everybody has art, but in that sense, I'm an artist. Maybe I guess you could say the same thing, put it that, but in this, I'll do a rock star. And yeah, I want to go deeper with my craft. I want to create more. I want to go down the rabbit hole more. I don't want to do this. I'd rather share revenue and responsibility, which is hard for me, but I'd rather do that and do my thing. I love the perspective, and I already want my kids to listen to this show. To look at Go.
No, I was just saying, I just think it's so powerful that you got to that place where you could own that. And it's such don't you think it's such a freeing thing when you can just declare like, this is what I like and what I'm excited about, and I'm going to stick to this instead of feeling like you have to do all these other things that aren't really authentic to you, but it's what you should be doing.
Yes. Okay. Play with this terminology then, because what I came to, I'm thinking about your rock star, superstar concept. Because what I came to initially was going, man, I'm more of an artist and I'm not that great of a business person. maybe I am an entrepreneur if we
Yeah.
can play with the semantics of those terms, but I obviously, I do my own thing and run or have my own business. I'm not good at running a business. I'm just not, it's not my art. And I look at friends of mine, so many peers, I'm sure you've got them too. And I'll ask where you feel like you are there, but I look at them and they love the art of growing a business.
Yeah.
And I don't now. I want to reach people and do my craft well, but I want to just do my craft. And so I was playing with, gosh, I'm more of an artist. I'm not a business person. I'm going to partner with people, which now I have.
Yeah.
And you can go down the list: literary agent, traditional publisher, podcast network, partner in the business, which is actually my brother, who's doing that. And all these people now that I'm sharing ownership, I'm sharing revenue. And in that sense, I don't have as much autonomy on the business, but I have 100% in my craft.
Yeah.
How do you, again, go? So how's your journey been? Are you feeling, does that ring true to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I first started out in my entrepreneurship journey, growing the cleaning company, did that for 14 years. I definitely felt like I was out of my strengths and also out of what I was excited about. I didn't love the operations side of the business. I didn't love thinking about how to scale the cleaning side of the business. It was always the culture, the people, like bringing people together, teaching people. That was 100% where I came alive. So eventually, I transitioned the company, sold the company, and now speak and do this full time. And I do have a team, a small team, but I realize I need to stick to what I love and what I'm good at. And I need to hire people and surround myself with people who are really good at the other parts that are critical that don't come naturally to me. So I do have someone on the team who's an incredible operator.
Yeah.
And she would never want to do the kind of work that I'm doing, which is a sign that she's in her sweet spot. And I would never want to do the kind of work she's doing. And I think it's just really powerful when you can own who you are. And I think that's what it means to be a leader. It's to be authentic, to be true to yourself, to be able to put your head on your pillow at night and know that you're in integrity with yourself. And I think it's also okay to be in a spot where you're realizing I'm in a place where I don't feel like I'm in my sweet spot. And maybe you can't make a change right this second, just to have that awareness.
Agreed. Thank you. And I want to go down the rabbit trail of what you talked about moving on. The concept feels antiquated in my mind. And yet culturally, I think it's still what we live under, which is, let's go from a kid's standpoint. You go through school, you go to college or whatever, you find that vocation, and then you go after that and you continue it for life. You go to school, you decide you want to be a doctor, you go to med school, you become a doctor. That's what you have to do for the rest of your life. Now we know stats wise that people have more jobs, careers, whatever than ever before, but that still feels like the going perspective of what we're supposed to do. And so for you to say that it was not that, popular or common to say, you know what, things are going well and I just don't want it. I want to step down, maybe do something smaller or whatnot. I want people to have permission to do that, to say, hey, I'm going to go after X. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see how it goes. And then if I don't want to continue it, even if it's doing well, maybe we should hit that. Even if it's doing well and you don't want to, it's okay. One, and two, you're going to take transferable skills over to something else. Fair?
Totally. And I think we all have different experiences in our lives that's shaped us and kind of how we see the world. And it's shaped our mindset and really our decisions and our, actions and behaviors. And what I began to realize about myself is I had this belief that it was my job to make everyone happy. And I learned that actually through working with a coach. And we talked about where that belief came from. And it definitely comes from my childhood. A few things. I was always the peacemaker in our house. If my parents had an argument, I would go to them. I would find them. I would, ask them to say sorry. Like that was my role in our house. And also my mom struggled with depression. And so I didn't understand mental health as a child. And I just saw that she was sad a lot and I wanted her to be happy. And so I kind of took that on as a kid, like trying to make her have a happy day. And so I didn't realize that those experiences were really driving me later in my adult life, because I knew that I was starting to feel unfulfilled in my business. I knew that I wanted to go into the speaking and the writing and the teaching full time, but I didn't dare even think about what that could look like and how I could do it, because I didn't think that's what would keep everyone happy. I was afraid that making that decision would impact a lot of people in my company, that people might not agree with that decision. And so instead of rocking the boat and going after what I really wanted, I prioritized, what I thought everyone else wanted. Well, once I realized that that was behind it for me, I learned that it's not my job to keep everyone happy. I was able to then step into what I really wanted to do. And what I learned is that people supported me. They were surprised that it took me so long to do it. And actually, I wasn't being a great leader when I was living in that place of being inauthentic. The business wasn't doing as well as it could be because my heart wasn't in it. And so I was actually hurting people more by staying in this place that wasn't meant for me anymore. So I think it's just maybe peeling back the layers a little bit, like what and at the end of the day, what drives us to make the decisions that we do. And it's probably a lot more complex than we think it is.
Well, thank you. Thanks for speaking to drive with that, because it's so paramount when we're looking at what we're doing, understanding why we're doing it. And I like you talking about the role that you were filling. I don't know who it was that said it a long time ago, that I don't remember. I wish I could give them credit to, but the idea of if you're doing something right, if I'm sitting here right now doing a podcast as a host and I just hate it. I'm just so sick of it. I'm tired. It's run its course or whatever. I'm filling the spot of somebody else who would be ecstatic. It's like I've hijacked their opportunity. And meanwhile, somebody else is doing something that they may not like that I would love to do. And I love the framework of looking at that as it's not just some failure. It's all of me, which, my gosh, speaking of that, I want to go back. I forgot about that. I wrote down identity capital. That's brilliant. And you said that was author Meg J. I missed that. I've never heard the term identity capital. That is, speak to that in regards to, looking at different opportunities and what drives you and going after that and realizing, because I'm thinking about transferable skills, but you've got me thinking about identity capital, that each of those things, all these things that I try can add to that. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think about the example of my company, Student Made cleaning business, right? A lot of people probably would look at our job advertisement and think, oh no, I'm not excited about cleaning. I'm not even going to apply for that job. And if you were to learn about the people that were a part of our company, you would hear these tremendous stories of people learning all of these skills and after Student Made landing dream jobs because of the experiences that they had in our company, because they learned how to problem solve, they learned how to build relationships, they had a lot of autonomy. They didn't have a manager over their shoulder. And so all of these skills it was identity capital. They were learning all of these things that would help them, later in their career. And because they were willing to not be so closed off to the opportunity, because they were willing to go and say, okay, it's a cleaning job, I could probably learn a lot though. They were able to gain a ton of identity capital. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges we have in our world, is that we have this idea of what a dream job is, or, and then we don't even, we rule out all these options because it doesn't match what's in our mind, when those can be the very places that could cause us to grow the most and actually catapult us even faster and, higher to the place we want to go. So I've just tried in my life to always be open to everything. Even if it's something that's not meant for me, my question is like, what is this teaching me? What am I learning about myself? And I have learned so much more from the things and the things that haven't gone well, the places that aren't meant for me, so much more about myself in those times than I have when it's like, oh, everything is just perfect and going so seamless and easy. Yeah. I don't think we learn about ourselves in those times.
That's so interesting, Kristen. I mean, it's got me thinking about what even doing what I'm doing now. This is flow for me. Honestly, This is as fun as, a great mountain bike ride. I love having this conversation. I don't, however, enjoy I'm not driven much by being a quote personality, an influencer, for being on stage. I'd be fine to never necessarily be on stage. Now I do it. What I care about, what I'm, passionate about is the message. Oh, I want to get this point across. Well, you got to do something, write a book, write a blog, speak about it, do something to get it out there. Cause you don't often find somebody who will, as soon as they come up with a clone that can go out there and do the thing, I'll do that. But even there, knowing what it is that you're really into, do you know Monty Moran? Side tangent.
No.
Okay. I got to connect you guys because your message is so similar to his. We had him on the show a couple times, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. So he was the former co-CEO of Chipotle.
Awesome.
He's a veritable neighbor. He lives up in Boulder, and his book, which is Love is Free, Guac is Extra. But his not claim to fame, but what really did, he met with something ridiculous, like 200,000 or something, or 20,000. It was a big number. Chipotle employees, and face to face, and talk to them what matters to them, and then how that translated into their work. I got to connect you guys. That would be,
Please, I would love that.
you guys would resonate and probably do more amazing things together on that. Influence. Then when I look at leadership, I tend to fall to influence. I mean, this show started off as the Ziglar show after Zig
Yeah.
Ziglar. His focus was sales. So sales, leadership, to me, I boil it down to influence. And I feel like we all want to have influence. That's the big term now these days, is you want to be an influencer. Well, you can do that by being, I don't know if it's not true. Somebody who is popular, they do influence whether they want to or not, and they're going to influence for good or bad.
Yeah.
Speak to that in that way, though, with leadership. I do look at that as whether I want to, you kind of said it before, if I want to lead my kids, if I want to lead my friends to things that I think would be, we do that all the time. Oh my gosh, this movie, you got to see it. You want them to go see it because you got so much good feels out of it. You want them to experience it. And in the same way, when you find something that helped your health and you want to share that with them, and you see somebody hurting and you want to, and if you don't have influence, so you can't. And that comes back into leadership. Take it down to that individual level for us.
Yeah. I guess I think about it like we might not realize how many opportunities we have in a day to make an impact and to influence someone or something. And I even think about, when you go and get your coffee in the morning and you're like, at the counter getting your coffee, do you look the person in the eye who's giving you the coffee? Do you, ask how they're doing? Do you wish them a wonderful day? Like, you have no idea. That person could have been having a terrible morning. And just by you being present for that 30 seconds and, asking how they're doing or giving a smile could now be a ripple effect where now they're going to smile to someone else and be in a better mood because of your interaction. Or are we like, texting, like not paying attention, so I think when I think about influence, I think about being present, being human, recognizing that every time you interact with someone, you have a chance to either spread light, or to unintentionally do the opposite.
Yeah.
And even with I'm a bonus mom to an 11-year-old, and I think about just how I respond to things. I'm teaching something either way. And my response is going to, what do I want to be the lesson here, the takeaway? And really learning to lead by example. And we don't always get it right. And, I think reflection is a huge part of being a leader. At the end of the day, I always try to take at least 5 or 10 minutes and just think about my day and think about, is there anything I would have handled differently if I could go back? And how might I approach that again if I'm ever faced with that again? Or even anything I need to own up to. Sometimes I'll, reach out to my team and say, hey, I feel like I was really distracted in our meeting earlier and I'm really sorry about that. I want to own that. I'm going to be more present tomorrow. And I think that's what it is. It's recognizing that you have an impact on the people that you're around. And, are you aware of that? Are you taking that opportunity and that responsibility to heart?
It's so, the timing is interesting. I told you I was in Florida recently, where you're from, for a long time. It is actually to walk with my dad from a end of life diagnosis to his death. But I spent time with him and my mom. And then after he passed away with my mom, and they live in this kind of gated community in Florida, and it's got its own, big clubhouse and restaurant and all this kind of stuff. And it was so, I know this, they're my parents, but it was just so stark again to watch them as they walk in, and every employee they knew by name. Oh my gosh, Maria, and a big hug, and, Bob, and hugs to these people. And they knew some of the other people there, the other residents, they knew some, but by far and large, it was talking to the people who served them that just loved and adored them. And it was convicting to me. I know how to win friends and influence people. And I look people in the eye and I'm absolutely give them a smile, and I'm kind and compassionate. And I'm also selfish with my time.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. I would just as soon be kind of invisible but I'm there. Why not be present and bless them, which in turn will bless me? I mean, I'm serving myself here. Right. So it's good to hear you say that. And it is not, I don't want to pick on the culture necessarily. I do feel like maybe it's because I'm more sensitive to it, but now more than ever, it's so seldom to get a smile, to get at a place a business that you've gone into, you're giving them your money, to get a smile, to get a kind word. And at best you get if you say thank you for doing what they should be doing, you get a no problem, which kind of makes me think, so could it have been a problem if I had asked for another napkin?
Right. Right. Right.
It feels like a better opportunity to stand out, though, don't you think? I mean, if you're looking at business, you have a better opportunity than ever to stand out. And so if you teach your employees that and yourself that, I do appreciate Starbucks and people. I hear about Chick-fil-A, and it stands out because people are generally nice. So I'm going to say that, and somebody got really bad service at Starbucks this morning, I'm sure, but it feels like a great opportunity, doesn't it?
I think so. So one of the first times I worked with a coach, I got this assignment to write my eulogy. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, an executive coaching. And it was so hard. And I remember actually Googling other people's eulogies and okay, I don't think the point is to copy someone else's. I need to think about myself. And what I realized is that a lot of what I kind of was defining success by at that point was material things, like wanting my company to be X size. It was more about results and not so much about how, as a person, how am I impacting people and what is the legacy that I want to leave? And, I leave the room, what do I want people to say about the kind of person that I am?
Yeah.
And it was this really, I did that. It was probably, 10 years ago now. And I realized that I needed to shift my behavior, or I might get to the end of my life and, have some regrets. And if you think about it, when we get to the end of our life, I would imagine we're thinking, did the people that I love know how much I love them? And what kind of person was I? And that's what matters, but we get disconnected from that. And so I think it actually makes leadership and influence more meaningful when we think about it like that. It's just what kind of person do you want to be? And that is in your control 100% of the time. It doesn't matter what you're doing in your life, that comes with you. Yeah. And for me, it's all about people. I want to make sure that everyone that I interact with feels that they matter, because they do. And I don't always get it right, but that's kind of my guiding North Star every day.
There's an old story, Kristen, that you remind me of with that concept. I heard it from Zig Ziglar. I don't know who initially said it, but he talked about this person who went to this big dinner, and it was all these, famous people, prime minister and whatever. And this a friend went and sat between this prime minister and this prime minister, something like that. And afterwards he said, oh gosh, so what was it like? What do you think about the people around you that you got to meet? And they said, gosh, I met this person, prime minister or whatever, and on my left, and talked to him, and oh my gosh, I was amazed. What an amazing person they are. I learned what an amazing person they are. Okay, what about the other person? My gosh, after talking with them, I learned what an amazing person I am. I thought, oh, can I be that person? And it's so hard even to, with that mindset to, people ask, what do you do? And thinking about, well, if I tell you what I do, I'm not going to learn a thing about you, and you won't remember me at all. But that's, again, we don't get taught that anywhere. I guess that's why How to Win Friends and Influence People was so popular. Not that that's the end all. I'll ask you that, resources, when you look at that, obviously your book, I love the spirit in it, but when you look at that, what were some of your influences? You've named some people on the type of leadership you want. Granted, there's this much on leadership. What were you who most influenced you?
Yeah, well, when I started, 21, right, I didn't know, anything about leadership. And so I knew I needed to find some mentors, and I didn't even know where to look to find them. So I just would go to the bookstore, and every Friday I was in that bookstore. I took a speed reading class so I could read as much as possible in one sitting. I couldn't even afford to buy the book, so I would just sit there in the store and speed read these books. And Tony Hsieh, rest in peace, Tony Hsieh, such an amazing leader. He was one of my first mentors through a book. I read Delivering Happiness. It taught me a lot about values and culture, and I knew this is the kind of leader that I want to be. And I learned a lot about servant leadership. I knew that I wanted to be a servant leader, that I wanted to be a people first leader. And so I would say I first started with books, and I would just practice with principles that I learned. And yeah, I would find kind of what worked for me. And I really took those lessons to heart. And then I started going to networking events, and I realized there are mentors everywhere. Yeah. And whether it's someone younger than you, older than you, same industry as you, different industry as you, doing what you want to be doing the opposite of what you want to be doing, you can learn something from everyone. So I would just ask, can we have a coffee? And half of the people might turn me down, but then the other half would say yes. And I would learn something from everyone's story. And I think mentors are everywhere. I also was a part of, and I wrote about this in the book, a part of a group of leaders. We would meet once a month, and it was this really safe place to talk about what was working in our lives and our businesses, what wasn't. It was like a 4 or 5 hour meeting every month. And that's where I began to learn about vulnerability and just being honest with, what you're struggling with. And when you can do that, not only can you get help, but you can also feel less alone. And so I think all of those things together just really, influenced especially the early years of my journey.
I appreciate you saying that, mentoring by so many different people. I grew up in the culture where your mentor's some older Yoda type person. And yet I think now, and my gosh, there's some aspects. I've got a son-in-law who's a mentor to me in his peaceful spirit. One of my sons too, same thing. I guess I've got multiple, kids and significant others. These are my kids that mentor me in certain areas where I see their spirit, and I want to be more open to that. Kristen, one of the things you talk about in leadership and you go through in the book as a big part of your story, kind of a headline even, is the things you did wrong, the mistakes that you made, and the failures. And, again, failure is another big term. We talk about it a lot. I still don't feel we're doing a whole lot of justice to it. I still feel like by far and large, the culture, we are afraid to fail. And wanted to ask you about that. Your book starts off with a foreword from Simon Sinek, and he uses the aspect of a ballerina, which it was acute to me. My wife used to be a professional ballerina, and you see this perfect thing on stage that was years and years of trial and torment, to showcase that, but we still don't take it to heart. And I thought about, my book's called What Drives You. So, we use car analogies a lot. And when I look at it, I have an old Suburban, 99, 220,000 miles. It is so reliable. When I crank it up to take stuff to the dump or to go get some lumber for a home project or, use it for its use, it's so reliable. It's not going to win any awards. Nobody's ever going to know about it. And so that's great. And that's sweet. And that may be a focal point for somebody's life. Most people listening to this are wanting to do some things. They want to succeed with some things and achieve them. And so now I'm thinking about the high-end sports cars. And those things break down a lot, and they need a lot of maintenance, and they're not the most reliable stuff. They fail a lot, but when they win, holy crap, it's awesome. Wow. And to think about that and think, of course we should be, if I am not failing, I'm really not doing that much. I'm not pushing that much. I'm not seeing it's pithy to say, but do you feel me? And we're still not getting it as a culture, which is why I love your book and another reason you're on the show. And I wanted to talk about that. I don't know how to do justice to it, Kristen. I want to, and I've experienced it. Thank goodness I had a father like yours who gave me faith on a silver platter that I'm not going to end up homeless. The worst case scenario is really not that horrible usually, but give me, highlight on helping somebody like, oh my gosh, can we just be okay with not being perfect and failing?
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason we're not okay with it is because we don't talk about it. And we don't, it's something that we kind of keep to ourselves, or we're ashamed of it, or because no one's talking about it. So I think we need leaders who are willing to say, I screwed that up, and here's what I learned from that. I think that the power of failure, when we actually allow ourselves to fail, when we have the courage to fail, that's when we learn what we're capable of. It's when we become more confident in ourselves. It's when we learn that we can get through things. We build resilience. The confidence and the aftermath of a failure is what builds our character. So if we're not failing, then we're probably not growing. We're not becoming more confident in our abilities. We're not building resilience. And, what does the future look like if that trend continues? So I think about, I'll use my book as an example. I was almost like frozen from making progress on the book. I kept procrastinating because I was so terrified that the book would be a failure. And I understand that my book's called Permission to Screw Up. And in that, I also realized I was a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But I was holding on to every single word and like overthinking things because behind it was a fear. What if this doesn't do well? Then I also realized I had a fear of success, which I think people don't talk about enough. Fear of success is, okay, what if you do this thing and it actually works? And then your life is going to change. Or for me, it's like, oh no, what if I have to write another book if people like this
You're
book?
like accountable to it.
Yeah, you're accountable to it. And so both of those things kind of kept me frozen. And my editor, who was so patient with me, finally gave me some tough love. And she's like, you got to give me something. And what I want you to do is I want you to make it bad. Because if you can make it bad, we can make it better together. But if you don't make it at all, there's nothing that we can do. And so she actually had me rename the chapter I was working on to like crappy first draft chapter 2 or something. And just that allowed me to actually make progress. It's like, wait, I have permission to not get it perfect. Like I can just write whatever comes out. And then that led to momentum. And so I love that mindset of like, how can you just make it bad? Make it bad, because if you make it bad, you can do something with that. But if you don't ever take the step, there's nothing that can happen. And then here's the other thing. I think that's funny. As humans, we think, oh no, if I fail this time, I'm never going to get through that. But we have made it through 100% of the things that we've been through in our life. Every single person listening to this, we have made it through 100% of everything.
Fair.
So why do we get in our head and think, oh, this time's going to be it's going to be different? Whatever happens, we'll get through it. Just like we have always.
I had one job, Kristen, like an actual job, with the W-2 and whatever. One job long time ago for 2 years. And the guy, God bless his soul, gave me $1,000 budget per month to fail with.
So
$1,000 to blow. Can you imagine? It was the best job an entrepreneur could have. I lasted 2 years because of that. And it was great. And I think about and we know this, and yet we don't conceive it, that the things we see on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, where somebody does something incredible feat, they throw the basketball over their shoulder from, across the court and it goes in. And we know that they did that 50 times.
Wow.
And we see the one thing and we don't take that into account. It makes me think of how great it would be if, to have an employee, which most of my team is independent contractors and whatnot, but to have an employee and say, look, you get this much to blow every month, or I want 3 failures. Here's the idea. Give me 3 failures on that and make it an expectation. Cause I got to assume that, leaders out there, especially in the workforce, are probably not doing a good job of making room for that. Is that what you find as well?
Yeah, I think we can definitely do what you're saying, give people permission to fail, even say, hey, I have your back as long as you make decisions with our values in mind, even if it doesn't pan out the way you're hoping, like we're going to learn from it. Sometimes people need that, to hear that, to feel safe to fail. I also think as leaders, we might not, I'm sure you've heard of the term helicopter parents.
Yeah.
The parents that hover and save the kid from catastrophe. Well, we might be helicopter leaders. We might even be there. There's this thing called lawnmower parents, where you just mow the obstacle out of the way so the kid never faces the obstacle. We could also be lawnmower leaders. So what I mean by that is, are you giving people the chance to mess up and get back up again, or are you constantly rescuing people? Yeah. And if you're rescuing people or you're preventing them from even having to fail in the first place, you're actually not caring for people. What you're doing is you're preventing them the ability to grow. And it's the same thing with parenting. It's really hard. Even with my bonus daughter, it's like, I know she's going to mess that up, but I'm going to let her do that because I know she's going to learn from that. And if I protect her from this, she's going to have to learn that again one day when the stakes are maybe even higher. And I think that's a really hard line to walk. But I have found that when I actually give people the permission to screw up and then get back up again, that's when they grow the most and they own the success.
You reminded me, reading your book, Kristen, I have a whole tribe of children.
Yes.
And, from old to young. And it's interesting. I was not necessarily a helicopter parent or a lawnmower parent. I mean, I had a father who let me, or parents, let me fail, and I was good with that. But I fell into robbing them of failure and responsibility to feed my own identity issue, my own identity crisis. I was Superman. I'm the hero. I take care of everything. I fix everything. And for me, it wasn't even because I was trying to save them. I was just trying to feed me. And when I finally hit the wall of that and realized that and started backing off, of course, it was beautiful to let them to realize when I hear the problem, they didn't ask for my help and not do anything, which felt so bad because I felt I do hear the problem. I know I can fix it. Shut up, don't do anything, and just sit there. And they would go on, and the beauty to see them do that. And I even had a daughter, God bless her, who multiple times now said, Daddy, just tell me about some problems. She goes, wait, don't fix it. I won't learn to do it. And you just help remind me that because we have that concept from parenting of like we're trying to save them. I wasn't even trying to save them. I was just trying to help me. But I still robbed them somewhat of the same issue.
It's our ego. It's our identity. It's, I can relate to that in my business. It's, wait, what happens if people don't need me?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do then?
The hero complex, man. I hit it hard. Well, another thing that you brought up in reading about that initial story, which folks, you got to go through the book. It's such a great story. Kristen led off with a little bit of starting this cleaning business and then getting this big contract, or thinking she had this big contract and hiring these people, and they walked out. And it reminded me of the scenario or the spirit of, do you know the old movie Hook with Robin Williams? You ever seen that?
It's been a long time.
Long time. Well, it's this guy, he's got a big business and a big team and whatnot. And he has this big deal. And it's just, he gets irate with everybody. His kids on a trip. He's like, this is the deal of a lifetime. It was really critical. Like the world's going to go to hell if this doesn't come through. And so I was thinking about that. It's fresh in my mind because we watched it with a kid who hadn't seen it yet recently. And then you told the story. And it's so interesting as I think back, like you said, we're all here today. We've all made it. When we look at the worst case scenario, it's just never the worst case. You tell me, I have never met an entrepreneur, somebody out there who went out and tried something. He said, you know what? I went out, I tried, I failed, and I became homeless. That was the end. Done. I'm history. Never heard the story. Not to minimize some bad consequences. I know people who lost their house, have gone bankrupt, and we have those stories. My gosh, I was just with Dave Ramsey recently, and he went bankrupt. He lost everything. It's part of his story, and he learned from it. And he went on, and now he owns half the world. And it's never the worst case. Why do we get it? And what really came up, and I'm going to throw this to you, is, and I heard this from a friend recently, is at the end of it is mainly just pride. How's that ring to you?
Yeah. It's, oh no, what if this doesn't work? And then everyone sees that it doesn't work. And then I'm seen as a failure. And I think, how often do we look at people and say, oh, they're a failure? Like I don't do that. We think other people are going to think these things, but the reality is they're thinking about their own life and they're not really thinking about what we're doing over here. So there's a great book. Okay. It's written by Stephen Pressfield. It's The War of Art. There's also The Art of War. This is The War of Art. And he talks about it talks about resistance. And he says resistance is like the thing that gets in the way of us doing the thing that we want to do. And, I kind of think fear is a form of resistance. Like we want to start the business, but we're afraid that it's going to fail. So like that's, we don't actually take the step. Well, he talks about resistance being a compass and how if you didn't care about that thing, you just would be apathetic. You wouldn't have any kind of feeling.
Right.
So when you're finding yourself afraid or you have fear or you're resisting, it actually could be a sign that you really care about that thing. And you want it to succeed and you want it to work, which is why you're putting this pressure on yourself. And he says you should use it as a compass. So when I think about that now, I think, okay, if I'm feeling fear, oh, this is telling me something. It means that I really care about this thing and I really want to do well. And public speaking is a great example. People ask me, do I get nervous to give a speech every single time? And I used to think maybe that I'm not cut out for this if I'm, but now I realize, no, it's because I care. It's because I want to do a good job. So learning to dance with fear, like fear is actually a sign that you're on the right track. You care about the thing that you want to do. And that's awesome.
That's interesting. I appreciate you saying that. Do we think of somebody as a failure? Is there somebody, I mean, people who went out there and tried, I don't think about them as a failure. The thing that bothers me is the folks that won't try, or when myself, I can't get myself to try. That's when I feel like a failure, when I won't step out and do it. But if I try it and it doesn't work, gosh, I don't know. I mean, it feels bad. Sure, it does to go out there and put something out. I mean, I've done that. I did that. How many years? It's probably been sooner than I want to admit. But we tried a business and put it out, and it was like crickets. And we realized, and through that, we realized we don't really want to do that. It was a good idea, but we don't. But it didn't feel bad. We learned, but I guess it wasn't the end of us. One, yeah. I think the only thing, I mean, we lost some money, but it's pride. Yeah. And it shouldn't, because I would extend that grace to you in a heartbeat. Why don't we do it? Okay. You know what? I'm going to bring that in your book, page 31. I'm going to ask you to recite it, because isn't that terrible? If you ever had somebody do that, ask you about, like, tell me about this, read this, recite the statement on page 31. You're like, I have no idea.
What chapter is page 30?
I don't know. Okay. So here's what you said, Kristen. You said, or what was written: trust people with enormous responsibilities. You had it's like three things: trust people with enormous responsibilities, allow room for mess ups, then give them the chance to fix their mistakes so they can learn from them. Allow room for mess ups, assume that there's going to be a mistake, give them the chance to fix their mistakes so they can learn from them. Okay. My first thought when I read that was, how often do we not do that for ourselves?
Yeah.
How do we put that on to, that's probably a good thing for everybody to stop, pause the thing, and listen. Have you trusted yourself with enormous responsibility, allowed room for a mess up, and then give yourself a chance to fix the mistakes? How can we, again, it's making that palatable, and it's an expectation of that's the gig. It's not doing it and it either succeeds or fails. Fair?
Right. Right. And I think what true failure is, I would say, is, imagine, I call it what if land. Like, you get to the end of your life and you are thinking, what if I had tried that? Or what if I had had the courage to go after that? Or what if, so I guess the way I see it is, do it, because at least you'll know. Maybe it won't work, but at least you'll know. And it won't be this question that you have for the rest of your life of what would have happened if I had. And I do think that every single thing leads us to the next thing. So in the moment, something might not work out and you think, oh, I'm really bummed about that. Then in 3 years, you look back and you're like, thank goodness that didn't work out, because it led to this, which led to that, which led to where I am now. And well, part of it, I think, is it's what you said, trusting ourselves, trusting the process, also living in the question. Like, we might not know exactly how things are going to pan out, and that's uncomfortable because we want to have control. And it's really freeing when you just decide, I'm going to live in the question. Actually, I had an appointment with my therapist yesterday. We were talking, she was telling me about this analogy. She said, there's kind of two routes you can take in life. You can swim upstream, or you can go with the current. And when you swim upstream, it's going to feel like a struggle. You're going to feel it. It's going to be really, really hard. It's going to feel like you're forcing things. And, but when you go with the current, it's a lot more freeing. And, it's maybe a little bit scarier because you don't know how it's going to take you. But I just thought about that as you said that. Like, I think life is about going with the current, and it doesn't mean that we're always going to know how it's going to pan out.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. We're going to play. You ready?
Yeah.
That's an interesting analogy to me, because we always look at the term of going with the flow and kind of thought, if you go with the flow, it's probably the norm, and it go with the flow of, like, the average American diet is not good. And so we think swim upstream. Well, I finally came to that. Kind of used to be the big hurrah, swim upstream, be a rebel, be a renegade. And I finally realized nobody wants to do that. It sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is what came to me, and I don't know that I've ever really talked about it, but it's just been in my head, is what I really want to do is just find a different flow. So if this flow is the common, let's just to play with that, the common American diet, let's say, well, that's not working, but there's a flow over here called a blue zone of people who are actually eating well and they're exercising, whatever. I can jump over there, but that's make the jump as opposed to going upstream. Cause that stinks. And yet that's the thing that we think we have to do if we're ever in a place where we feel dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Does that ring? Yeah.
Yeah. I think about it like, when you go with the current, you're essentially surrendering the outcome. Like, when you're going upstream, you're trying to force, you're trying to control, you're trying to And I think if you really want to grow in your life, it's like you go after the things that you are excited about and you accept that you don't know how it's going to pan out. And if you're waiting for complete certainty and, all these things, you might be waiting forever and then you may never take the step. And so I'm trying to be better about just surrendering, the outcome and more just enjoying the process and the journey.
Gosh, I hear you. That's a constant. I have to be really intentional about that because I tend to control. I want to control. Okay, well, send me a therapy bill for that. Your talk about, I was really intrigued in the aspect again of influencing people. Okay, we can use the term leadership, in leading people and influencing people, of you making the decision to become a cheerleader. And one, how powerful it was. And I've dealt with this in parenting, some of trying to do that. It's not, I'm not, well, yeah, I am. I can be critical, and to cheerlead like you did. I don't know. I kind of want you to share that journey because it feels like you went from cheerleader and going, okay, that's it. I'm just a cheerleader. I'm not going to be the confrontational leader. And you got counsel that, okay, at some points you do have to confront stuff. So then you, for our clean rating, you created the crap sandwich, did that. And then, which I appreciated, but then you said, okay, but then there's actually another variation. Speak to us about that.
So I think this connects back to what I shared about my mindset of me feeling like it was my job to keep everyone happy. Before I had that awareness about myself, how it was showing up in my leadership is I always wanted people to feel good. So I would go really heavy on the recognition. And I was terrified to have the conversation of this needs to be better because I thought that wouldn't make people happy. So I definitely was more of the cheerleader. You're doing everything awesome and avoiding the tough conversations. And but
don't leave that. You did it with great success. Well, with some success about how you would do that. I love the story of the guy, cleaning a toilet slower than anyone. And then you came and said, oh, we couldn't do without you on the team. You're so great. And it inspired him. I love that part. I don't want to miss that either.
Yeah, we want to know what we're doing that's positive and we absolutely want to, have that recognition. And so that, yes, I think the challenge that I had is I was all that and not the, hey, this could be better. And we don't really, I think, trust people who don't give us both sides. If you think about it, the people you trust most in your life are probably the people who definitely build you up and lift you up and tell you the things you do great. Also, they're the people that have the courage to be real with you when there's something you're doing that could be better. And so I had to learn how to be in the middle of that. And the crap sandwich that you alluded to was my way of trying to deliver critical feedback in a way that would feel better. You recognize someone, you put the thing you actually need to say in the middle, you recognize them. But what that did is it confused people because people didn't know, was I recognizing them? Was there something they needed to be doing better? So I had to learn how to communicate with compassion, but also with clarity and transparency and candor. And so we use a method in our company still today called the FBI, and it comes from our friends at Barry Waymiller. The F stands for feeling, the B stands for behavior, and the I stands for impact. So how you feel, what was the behavior that made you feel that way, and what's the impact of that behavior? So I'll give an example of an FBI someone gave me on my team. I took control of an agenda item that really wasn't mine to take control over. And the FBI I got was, I want to be honest with you, I felt really frustrated in our meeting earlier when you took control of that agenda item, and the impact is, I think it made me and the team question if you trust me to run with that. And I know that wasn't your intention. Can you tell me where you're coming from with that?
Yeah.
So it just gave me a way to communicate, but more importantly, gave the whole company a way to communicate. So we all lean into that FBI. And today I commit to something called the 24-hour window. So within 24 hours of me observing something that could be better, or within me feeling frustrated about something, or even something that was awesome, I commit to giving that feedback within 24 hours.
Okay. I thought you were going to take that a different direction of trying to sit on it and kind of a sleep on it type idea too. Is that part of it as well, as opposed to just react right away?
I am never going to be the person that just impulsively in the moment addresses it. I'm always going to think about it. I am going to address it within 24 hours unless I am emotional, heated, and I need more time to process it and think about it.
Yeah.
But I think doing that has helped me build trust because I'm consistent. People know where they stand with me, and they're never wondering if there's something I'm thinking and not expressing.
Okay, here's an odd. I've never come at somebody with this angle, so forgive me if we don't like it. We'll cut it out. You ready? And it came from, I mentioned Simon a minute ago, a cynic who you work with and are friends with and did the forward to your book. And he talked about he was at an event, CEO event or something like that. And it was all these, older seasoned folks. And then here you were the youngest person there. And yet what he saw is that's when everybody brought their notes out. In this message with human leadership that you're doing right now, when you're asked to speak, you're asked to talk on this, where do you find people having the most interest? Like, oh, this is what they love. What is the thing? Because I'm sitting here talking to you about what my interest is. Where is it that you find people are the most desiring to hear your input, your insight on?
It sounds so simple. It's about being human. I think sometimes we overcomplicate it and we forget that at the end of the day, we are human beings working with other human beings. And the more that we can understand the people around us and what they've been through and what their life experience is and the things that have shaped them, the things that have shaped us, and share that, the more compassion we have, empathy we have, understanding we have. Being human means being authentic and being willing to address things, even if they're hard, even if they're uncomfortable, because that's how we build trust and we create deeper connection. And so I think it's, in that particular story that you shared of me speaking at that event, what everyone wanted to know is how in a cleaning company could we keep people engaged and happy? And my answer was because we've created a human business where we really take the time to understand every person in on our team and really connect on a human level. And it turns out, I think, when we have that connection, that's what matters more than the work that we're doing. It's what could make working at a cleaning company one of the most rewarding things because it's about the people.
Okay, take that, Kristen. Thank you. Take that. And because my temptation for this, we're doing a series here that I name after the fact because I want to feel the spirit of what we're talking about. And, human leadership, I'm tempted to call it authentic leadership because that's what I want people to hear is that they can be them. But take that. So here you have a company and you're saying, what I hear you saying is whatever the company is, a cleaning company, it's a plumbing company, it's a real estate company, whatever. People are people. And that you have found this great value in connecting with them as humans and having human leadership. Okay, so we got that. And I would say nobody's going to argue that. Nobody's saying, you know what? No, in my company, I found it's best just to whip the hell out of them. They're going to say, okay, that's fine. However, let me make it kind of stark that you're talking with 5 other women who lead similar businesses and you all agree to that. And yet they are all not you. They're different personality style, different temperament, different demeanor. How can they pursue that as entrepreneurs and yet lead from their authentic selves as well?
Yeah. I think when you are a human leader, what it means is that you are willing to be vulnerable and share about yourself and with purpose though. The more that we can share about ourselves in the context of our work and our collaboration and, this is something you should know about me because knowing this about me helps us work better together. I think being human means having the courageous conversations, not letting stuff just sweep under the rug and addressing it even when it's hard. I think being human means screwing up and being honest about that and talking about that and being able to share what we learned from that. And it's about being authentic and not feeling like you have to be someone you're not and owning the growth that you want and owning the strengths that you have and owning the things you're excited about and, putting your hand up and saying, I know that these things are maybe what I'm supposed to like being in this role, but I don't like them. And I want to own that. And, it's I think this is what's missing in our world. I think, yes, people agree that people matter. And so many of our cultures and organizations, we don't see that actually being lived. Even things like allowing people to have work-life harmony and really thinking about giving freedom so that people don't resent their work and that their work and their life can work together. These are all things that I think it honors that we actually employ people that have hearts and like real lives. And the more that we can structure our organizations to really just embrace that.
Okay. Well, it's interesting timing. I have a note that I didn't even listen to the whole thing before this. It came through from my brother giving me some constructive criticism because I shot something out to the team, and apparently it sounds like I offended somebody else on the team. And my propensity, you can put it in a personality style or just own the propensity, I am focused on the end result. This is the vision, and everybody on the team, including me, is a tool to get it done. That's my propensity if I'm not being present. And it sounds like I did that this morning. And so I'm going to have to go and connect with it. Wait, I just put this out to human beings who have lives and kids and sicknesses and whatever. And I didn't do that. And I'm shooting myself in the foot. I can still, own my selfishness in that. I am not going to get her best now. Well, I'm going to have to go back and repair. Is what I'm going to have to do. But man, it feels like an entrepreneurial, that's pretty consistent. It feels like with a lot of entrepreneurs that we look at it and we got a good heart, we got a good intent. I say entrepreneurs, parents, whatever, but we're looking at the end goal and we forget the people. Man, I've hurt myself there before today too.
And, in that example, thank you for sharing that. And how powerful to be able to go back to your team, to maybe the person or who was upset by that. Hey, I now I'm reading it and I see how that came across and I am really sorry. Like owning that is so huge. And that's what I think it means to be human, because I think that actually is where you build the most trust and where you show that you are a leader. Because how many other leaders might allow ego and pride and things to get in the way and just like keep moving forward and not even address it. And I think when we can be human in that way, that is when we start to change the culture and the environment around us.
Well, now I have to be because she'll be editing this show. She's going to hear it anyways.
Yeah, now you'd have to.
Now I'm on deck. Kristen, thank you. It's such a gift to go through this. Well, and on that note, I want to, and I'll put this in the intro as well, but I know that you gave us a gift here for the Human Leadership Program. So that's your primary program. It happens like 6 times a year, something like that. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, we offer it 4 times a year.
4 times a year. Okay.
It's virtual. We have leaders from all over the world, all different roles, industries. The only thing that matters is that you're someone who's excited about leadership. And we would love to give everyone a ticket on us. And I think you have the link so everyone can register for that.
I do. Everybody, and we'll put this in the intro and outro, but yeah, there's in the show notes, there's a link because it's kind of a long one. Go there, click that. It's a $299 ticket. So that's what you'll see on the site. So you use that link and you can get it. Thank you.
For free. Yeah. You don't have to you get it on us. We would love for you all to come.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your heart. I love the book. I went online and read, you got a zillion ratings and reviews on Amazon, and I loved reading them, and people loved. I saw so many. To what I found too is all these great stories. You're laughing and what, it's funny. It's entertaining. And then she puts these great messages in there. So I love the style of the book, and of course it's a style of you, which is why you're doing what you're doing and you're on the show. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Well, wow. I mean, what a gift. That again was Kristen Hadeed, and she's author of Permission to Screw Up: How I Learned to Lead by Doing Almost Everything Wrong. Again, a gift from Kristen is her renowned program called the Human Leadership Program. A ticket there costs $299, but if you use the special link up in the show notes, you can get in for free, literally just free. Well, friends, I again invite you to join us in our community called the Drive Tribe. We continue this conversation, and from these shows and topics, we go deeper together. And the point is to drive further, faster, and enjoy the ride. Again, a special focus that we give to influence, which is the topic of this show, how to influence others well, personally and professionally. And you can find that at kevinmiller.co. Click the community tab and connect with me on social media, where we're now posting a lot of videos of Again, key messages I've learned from these amazing guests. Find me on any social media at kevinmiller.co. And thank you so much for letting me drive with you today. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey. I look forward to meeting you in the Drive Tribe community for ongoing discussions about each episode. You can subscribe to the Drive Drop newsletter for weekly updates. Find it all at kevinmiller.co, along with all our social media and video clips. Until next time, I hope this episode helps you drive further and enjoy the ride.